Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Benjamin Carter. I'm the Canon Warden here at Carlisle Cathedral, one of the residentiary canons and part of the team here as we welcome you to the Fraitree Hall, and it's wonderful to have you here today on this day bathed in what we call in Carlisle wet sunshine. So you're very, very welcome. We're in the Fraitree Hall. The Fraitree Hall is part of the old monastic buildings here. It was where the brothers, the fratres, would meet and gather, and so it's a very important place for us, but also a wonderful place for people to meet and gather, and it's been part of the rejuvenation of these spaces through a national lottery-funded project over the last 5 years or so, of which the cafe is the most impressive part, but of course the undercroft in this hall have been opened up for new uses as well. One of the other uses that the cathedral, the Fraitree Hall has had is it's been where we've housed the cathedral library since the library's refounding just after the Civil War, when the cathedral fell into disrepair and disuse, but then was refounded by some of my predecessors as canons here at the cathedral. And although it may feel a rather kind of rarefied space, it is actually quite an apt space for this conversation about digital poverty, because what many of my predecessors felt was that we needed to bring to the people of North Cumbria, Cumberland, the Diocese of Carlisle at that time, information and knowledge and opportunities for learning. And so many of them bequeathed their book collections to be the refounding of the cathedral library. And at that point, when printing was the cutting edge of technology, this was a place where we hoped that that knowledge would be shared in that way. And so actually today, as you're discussing digital poverty and the way in which the digital landscape can allow the rejuvenation of many of our more deprived, both spatially and economically deprived communities, it does feel, although perhaps a little rarefied in its looks, a more fitting place than you might first imagine. So we're delighted to have you here today. We hope you'll be very comfortable. Craig and the team are here to assist you in any way as you need it, but I'll hand over to the team for the rest of the day.
And thank you so much, Canon Benjamin, for that very fitting welcome to the fantastic space that we see before us. Welcome to everyone who is here in the room, who has come along to Carlisle Cathedral, and indeed to so many of you who are watching online all around the country and potentially even further afield. If you are watching us on YouTube, please do let us know who you are. I won't be able to see it, but my colleagues will. Let us know in the chat what your name is, what organisation you're representing, and also whereabouts in the country or the world you may be. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Elizabeth. I am the Chief Executive at the Digital Poverty Alliance. Hopefully you know a little bit about what the DPA is, otherwise you probably wouldn't have either come to this session or indeed be signed in on YouTube. But we are a charitable coalition, so we work with government, we work with business, we work with the third sector, we work with schools, health trusts, anyone who is interested in coming together with a shared goal of ending digital poverty once and for all by 2030. And we do this nationally, we do this locally, we do this regionally, we do this across the home nations of the UK. And our work arguably splits into two key areas. So we're going to be focusing today really on the advocacy, the campaigning, the research work that we do. But we also do a huge amount of delivery work. We have distributed thousands of laptops over the last couple of years. And I'm particularly delighted that we are in Carlisle today. We're bringing the launch to the Northwest, of course, but Cumberland is also a Tech for Families area. Some of you will be familiar with Tech for Families. Some of you will have just learned about it by picking up a leaflet on the table at the back. But this is supporting children, and it's our flagship delivery project, working alongside Currys, where customers within Currys stores can make micro-donations at the till. And we use those donations to buy new and refurbished kit and distribute this across 7 areas of the UK, very much including Cumberland and the West Cumbrian coast. And between that, where we actually launched the scheme locally in Workington in 2022, and my own family ties to the area mean that coming to Carlisle is really something close to my heart as well. So we have had some fantastic successes since we last gathered to launch the National Delivery Plan 2023 in London last year, which was our inaugural plan. and came off the back of our evidence review, our UK-wide evidence review, authored by Dr. Kira Ullman, which synthesised over 100 different reports, parliamentary consultations, and an unending supply of conversations to really understand the current picture. Since then, we have worked hard on raising awareness because we are very clear that actually not that many of the population really understand the impact of digital poverty, what those two words really mean when they're put together. We've seen over 120 media mentions in the last 6 months alone. We have seen at least 5 parliamentary debates where the DPA has been referenced. And that also reflects the need to ensure that parliamentarians are aware of this issue. And with the general election impending, in fact, a month today, that has never been more important. So whether that relates to the House of Lords digital exclusion inquiry, which we participated in last year, through to debates on the future of television and our support to maintain traditional broadcast until internet access is universal, it's fantastic that we're starting to see members of Parliament and peers picking up on the importance of this. And we've also seen key campaign successes. So it's been good news to start to see within political parties policy handbooks and policies that they are making, that they are going to focus on digital divide issues, and we await to those manifestos to see how far they take those promises. And also things such as the pushback of the deadline to cut off traditional landlines, moved back from next year to 2027. Following the petitions and campaigns that we ran. Digital poverty comes in many forms, so as we start to just think through what we're going to be discussing today, it's helpful, I think, to always define exactly what it is we're talking about. And the DPA's definition is that it's the inability to interact with the online world fully when, where, and how an individual needs to. So this covers devices and connectivity, whether that is infrastructure or whether, crucially, that is around affordability. It covers skills. It covers support. If you've ever wanted to throw one of these out the window because it wasn't doing what you wanted, you will understand why tech support is so important. It covers trust and confidence, and trust is an ever-growing issue that's going to be key to some of the discussions that we're having later today. And it's also around the accessibility and inclusivity of services. So once someone is online, do those services meet to their needs, whether they have additional needs or not? So our new 2024 NDP, and if you're in the room, you will find a copy on your chair, focuses on some new areas within the iteration of the document. So the first is around innovation in connectivity. For at least 25 years, if not more, we have gone round very similar cyclical debates around who pays for connection. We know the internet isn't cheap, broadband isn't cheap, mobile data isn't cheap. Is it the government should pay? Is it industry should pay? Is it the individual should pay? And round we go. However, new technology should be able to and can bring new solutions. So our first panel is really going to focus on some of this area. And we've got some fantastic panelists. Next new area for us is tackling the almost false distinction between digital literacy and media literacy. So we shouldn't purely just teach people how to turn this on, how to use Word, how to fill in a form, but how to use those digital services safely. Again, very much in the news over the weekend, we have seen all of these conversations about whether people can recognize fake news, so misinformation and disinformation, particularly in the run-up to a general election. But if we think about that more broadly, if we think about online harms in its broadest sense, if we think about scams and fraud, if we think about that misinformation and disinformation, the second panel that we've got today is going to focus around how we can support new and unconfident users to really use their critical thinking skills. AI. Now, when we were consulting on and writing the previous version of the National Delivery Plan, ChatGPT was not a thing. I doubt that anyone in this room had heard of it at the back end of 2022. By the time we were designing the report, it was just starting to kick around, but we'd already written it by then. But now generative AI is really all that many people want to talk about when they think about tech and they think about digital. So as you'll see within the report, we are going to be looking at the intersection of how young people use AI, generative AI particularly, how they use that within education, and then specifically how this relates to both trust and, really importantly, how this interrelates to digital poverty. And the final sort of new area for us is around the link between digital access and healthcare. So many of you will have been aware of the report that Deloitte very kindly supported us to create last autumn. And that research showed that up to 24,000 lives a year could be saved each year just for over 65s in the UK, purely by providing digital skills to be able to access health literacy. Now that is a social impact that surely we cannot ignore. So we will be ramping up our work in this area, not just around the health literacy side, but again, how this links to innovation, telemedicine, virtual wards, often touted as the solution to waiting lists and healthcare within the UK. And we will be looking at how trusts, how patients, how clinicians really feel about this, and how we can break down the digital barriers and digital exclusion that are meaning people are not able to benefit from these potentially life-saving interventions. So turning to a fuller overview of that document that you have on your seats, and with a massive thank you to Joel Tiller, our amazing head of external affairs, who authored the document. Unfortunately, Joel can't be here due to family circumstances. He can't be in the UK today, but a lot of credit to him in putting all of this work together. The NDP 2024 is the result of meticulous planning, and it focuses on 6 interconnected missions targeting these 6 key aspects of digital inclusivity. Those of you who've been following the DPA journey will recognize those 6 missions with some minor tweaks. And you will also remember that we've always been very clear that our National Delivery Plan is not a static document. It's not there to sit there and be a snapshot in time. This is very much a living document, and a new edition is published annually to reflect progress, update key actions, and take stock of the fact that there are new areas that we as an alliance want to be covering. So each mission challenges different areas of digital inclusion through a range of different approaches, including policy, including research, including absolutely key partnerships. This has been a highly iterative process. So we have consulted through our National Delivery Committee, through our industry forum, through the conversations that we have with partners. And again, for those of you who perhaps aren't embedded in the DPA day in, day out, there are 4 phases within the National Delivery Plan. So we are currently in the middle of phase 1. Phase 4 takes us all the way up to the end of the decade. So you have the roadmap in front of you. We have 3 key messages that overarch all 6 of the missions. One is that we need to end digital poverty together. Our key ask under this is that we need within the UK a new national digital inclusion strategy. And I'm sure I don't need to tell many of the people in this room and probably watching online that the UK's current digital inclusion strategy is reaching its 10th birthday this year. A few things have changed in the last 10 years. We had a pandemic. A lot of things moved online. Tech moved rapidly. So that is one of our key calls and sits fundamentally to our general election manifesto. We want to see as part of that cross-departmental collaboration with clear, transparent accountability, actually demonstrating how every department of government is working together to tackle digital poverty and digital exclusion. And this is especially critical in this general election year. Key message 2 is that digital access has to be seen now as a basic right. If we consider every aspect of our lives is driven by digital, if you didn't pick up one of the little quiz postcards on the back table, do have a look at it during the break and you'll start to see just how much of your life is linked to being able to get online. 19 million adults in the UK are experiencing digital poverty. Whilst we know that 1 in 2 older people are experiencing digital poverty, there is a common myth that digital poverty is something that doesn't affect younger generations. 20% of children are living in digital poverty right now, today, in the UK. That is 1 in 5 kids who come home from school and do not have the tools that they need to complete their learning. This cannot be okay in 2024. Later on, we're going to be talking about the Charter for Digital Inclusion, and one of our key asks under Key Message 2 is that organisations from all sectors need to integrate digital inclusion into their core work and not see it as peripheral. Our final key message, our final overarching message, is the empowerment of people and communities. So we need to be, as a society, supporting locally led solutions that can lead to widespread change. And this means hyperlocal. This means we need that national environment and we need these regional approaches, and we need localism at a county level, but we need to think about individual communities who often have differing needs. That might involve local authorities. It will almost certainly involve schools and NHS trusts and charities. But all of these groups need robust support. We cannot look to any one sector and hope that they'll have it covered and magically fix it. So I will just talk you through each of the 6 missions, just to orientate you through the document. Mission 1 is around raising awareness. Over the past year, we've established our National Delivery Committee, with big thanks to David Burrows, who chairs that committee for us, which helps us to discuss joint initiatives and consider some of the big issues that sit behind the National Delivery Plan, the NDP. We developed a strategy for targeted advocacy, delivering briefings to a range of highly influential decision makers across government, across industry, and elsewhere. We have produced and published the Charter for Digital Inclusion, and you will see information about that on the slides behind me. I'll talk about that a little bit later on this afternoon. We have launched and continue to grow End Digital Poverty Day, which can now be a national focus day for targeting this. And again, info on the slides behind me. And we released that socioeconomic impact case with delight, highlighting the urgency of the issue. Within Mission 2, a big part of this is tackling affordable connectivity and also access to devices. So, we have opened projects for individual device donations. Those laptops, those tablets, those cables, those keyboards that are sitting in our drawers and cupboards around the entire UK, that we do sort of uneasily know could probably be quite useful to somebody, but actually, what do you do with it? We are launching programs across the country where people will be able to dig those out, and we can then make sure that they get into the hands of young people, families, and individuals for whom those can be utterly transformational. We are also working through government, through FOI requests, through partnerships, through discussions, to raise awareness for why larger scale tech donations from organisations are so absolutely critical to tackling some of that digital divide. We are working to improve signposting and support schemes through both traditional and digital channels. So a big part of this is how we can bring together information about the support available in local areas and how we can make that easily and readily available to people who are not online. In reality, what does this mean? It means leaflets, it means posters, it means hard copy collateral that people can access without needing digital skills to find out how and where to find digital skills. And we are also advocating for delaying internet-only services until universal access is achieved. And this ranges through services being pushed online away from helplines or face-to-face care, through to telephony and television, which is at risk from being internet-only based. We look towards Mission 3, which promotes accessibility. And we will be collaborating with disability user groups to enhance accessibility in digital design. We will be advocating to extend government digital service requirements to critical public services, some of which are currently exempted from regulations that ensure such services need to be accessible to all. And we will be working with our partners to ensure that global guidelines around accessibility of non-public services, but just as essential, whether that's shopping, whether it's news, whether it's travel, can be made available. And we will be working through educational materials to make that a reality. Mission 4 focuses on digital and media literacy, and we have brought these two together because, as I said, there is no benefit in teaching somebody how to use a device if they don't know how to do that in a safe way. So we will be launching advocacy campaigns around government action on essential digital skills, which will form part of our campaign for the first 100 days of government. We will be working with some of our partners to promote digital champions programs to really enhance workforce support, which also sits as a key part of our new charter. And we will be collaborating with higher education institutions to enhance digital skills within a university setting. Fundamentally, we will also be advocating for media literacy to be taught as standard in schools and colleges, again, alongside our alliance partners. Mission 5 is around enhancing understanding. Whilst there is a growing body of research around digital poverty, it is not as strong as it needs to be, and the evidence base is not as in depth as we need to see. We have been advocating for the adoption of the minimum digital living standard, and we have also launched our own proof of concept projects, some of which you'll be able to pick up the white paper for, again at the back of the room, to really understand the impact of digital support on different user groups. We are building a library of case studies to really be able to demonstrate the lived experience of digital poverty and what this means to real people. And we are conducting the research I mentioned around AI on educational outcomes for those experiencing digital poverty and how this interlinks with the trust agenda. The final mission, and arguably the most critical, is around increasing local capacity and finding these local solutions. So this will include working through our local authority network, which brings together local authorities across all 4 of the home nations of the UK. We will be working with housing associations to create a toolkit to help them address digital poverty amongst their residents. We will also be running a pilot data capture project, working particularly in rural and coastal communities over this summer, to really deeply understand the challenges of gathering information about the support that is available out there, how we can map that, and how we can ensure that that stays up to date. And we will also be, as I mentioned, tackling the healthcare agenda by working with NHS trusts across the UK as part of our approach to linking digital access to health literacy. I hope that that has given you a bit of an overview of the National Delivery Plan for 2024 and some of the key topics that we are hoping to address. And we hope that you will be sufficiently interested in this to want to join with us and really think about how you can be part of the solution. We're going to talk about some of those calls to action at the end. In the next section of this event, we're going to have a couple of really insightful panel sessions focusing on innovation in connectivity and around critical thinking for online safety. But first of all, I'd like to welcome my colleague Imi, who is supporting the project management of this ambitious work programme, to the stage, and we'd love to take any questions that you might have around the work that I've just described. If you are online, do get those questions in on the chat. You can do that either on YouTube or on Twitter using the hashtag #EndDigitalPoverty. Any questions in the room, or is it a stunned silence? Gentleman at the back, please do wait for the microphone to come to you and let us know just briefly your name as well.
Andrew Sterling. The question is whether national means the whole of the UK. Does that mean Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England?
It absolutely does, and thank you for asking us to clarify that. When we say national, we do mean the United Kingdom. We do mean England, we mean Wales, we mean Scotland, we mean Northern Ireland. We are talking to policymakers in all 4 of the home nations, and we're also running delivery projects to get kit to people and connectivity to people and skills to people in all 4 of those states as well. Just wait for the microphone. People online can only hear if you use the microphone, is my understanding.
Hi, it's Pam Betts from Salford University. Just a quick question over you saying, have we got bits of equipment lying around the house, around the office and whatever. How would we get that equipment to you in the end, or the individual?
We love that question. I think it's the best question we hear of, oh, I've got some tech, what can I do with it? We can help. There is a part of our website that says you want to donate a device as a one-off device. You can click through that, and there's a flow chart that will sort of take you through. It could be via email. If it is an individual who is currently based in Ealing, for example, we have a scheme that is up and running, and people can, I mean, you don't have to live in Ealing, you can live near Ealing and go along and donate your device in multiple different community centres and libraries there. But we are also launching a couple of schemes shortly that will be in different parts of the UK as well, which will be sort of drop-off locations with potentially even roving places where people can go along and drop those off. There are other schemes. It doesn't have to be just through us that you donate your device, but obviously we would greatly appreciate that. And if you're a business or an organisation that would like to donate multiple devices, maybe even a lot of multiples, please do get in touch via email and we can help coordinate that, yes.
And what I would also say to organisations is this is cost neutral, so it's win-win. We can ensure that those devices are very safely wiped, everything is very secure. There's a lot of regulations that we have to adhere to around this. So if that's something of interest to you, we would love to help you wherever you might be across the UK. I think we've got an online question.
So we've been asked, how does the local community access the information regarding kits available and the equipment?
So it very much depends on which local community you might be in. Where you are in a community where we are running a delivery project, yes, we have the information online. The irony of that is not lost on us. So we go to a great deal of trouble to ensure that there is hard copy leaflets, posters, as I mentioned, hard copy application forms, even hard copy terms and conditions, so that nobody is disadvantaged by that. And we also have text facilities so that people can get in touch if you've got any kind of phone and you just want to send us a text message to get that application. For the benefit of whoever has asked, we're running our Tech for Families scheme in, as I said, 7 locations around the UK. So that starts off in the whole of Ayrshire in Scotland. We then move down to Cumberland and the West Cumbrian coast, where we are today. We cover the entirety of Northern Ireland. We cover Bridgend and Neath Talbot in Wales. We then cover Staffordshire, and we also then cover the Norfolk coast and the Lincolnshire coast as well. Hopefully that's 7 and I haven't missed any. We also last week had the pleasure of launching our new Tech for Youth scheme, which is in northwest Leicestershire and is kindly supported by the Barrett Foundation and Barrett Homes PLC. And we will be launching more similar schemes across the country in other areas. In terms of accessing other information about other forms of support available, the production of the collateral that I referenced within the welcome and opening remarks is something we're working on this summer. And then we will be working through community groups, we'll be working through local authorities, NHS trusts, etc., to really make sure that we see as great a take-up as possible in terms of making that information available. Because we know that even just one stat, 60% of people would improve their digital skills if only there was free support to do that. Everybody in this room knows there is free support to do that, but we're not getting that message across.
Hi, Miguel Blackman with Down Council. You mentioned that to increase local capacity, you'll be working with the local authority network. How exactly can you provide support to local authorities so we can improve our digital support system?
Fantastic question. It very much depends on what the support is that you need. So, point one, we run a local authority network that any local authority within the UK can join. It's free, there's no financial outlay, the meetings are all held online, so it, we hope, is very accessible to local authority, both staff and elected representatives. Through that, we aim to share best practice, we aim to have knowledge exchange sessions between different local authorities. We can also provide advice as a charity in terms of some of the key issues to be addressing. In terms of more practical support, we have, for example, our SIM card bank, where local authorities, charities, other types of organisation can apply to receive that connectivity support for local residents. And there's sort of also a range of other consultancy that we can provide, particularly around, for example, skills workshops and how to work with members of the local community. A part of that includes how to connect with people who are not online, and some of the better ways that we've found as an organisation of doing that. Imi, I don't know if there's anything you would add or whether you'd say that covers.
I feel like you've covered everything that we do.
I like to be
but
thorough.
I think just to highlight the local authority network, it's really important that we capture not just local authorities that are already doing a lot, but trying to bring more people in who maybe don't have a specific digital inclusion officer or potentially funding around that, but bringing in different local authority networks so that we can showcase maybe examples that have gone really well where it doesn't require additional funding. So if you are part of a local authority or you want to encourage your local authority to get involved, please reach out to us and we can send you the invites to all of the meetings. It's only 4 a year. It's not all of the meetings.
I'm going to come to the gentleman there.
Hi, Andy Twelves from the BTS. You spoke briefly about media literacy and trying to push on that. We're doing a lot of work on digital literacy, so I was wondering if you could go into a bit more detail about the stuff that you're advocating for.
Absolutely. I mean, a big part of this is around advocating for the importance of bringing these two together. There is a lot of support out there, if people can find it, around digital skills. But the media literacy agenda, whether, as I said, whether that's online safety, whether it's avoiding scams and fraud and not clicking on that dodgy link that even though it looks like a reputable news site, whether it is the misinformation piece, all of these are especially crucial, and particularly with the AI rise that we're seeing at the moment as well, which then also damages trust in digital services. We're going to have a whole panel on this, so I'm going to try not to steal the thunder of our panellists talking about it. But as I say, on the one side, it's the advocacy that we'll be doing within our policy campaigns. On another side, it will feature within the industry forum discussions that we're having with some of our business partners around how organisations can really support individuals to access the help and empowerment that they need. But also, we're really building this into the programmes that we run and the delivery that we run. And as Project Manager for Tech for Youth, Imi, would you like to outline some of the skills workshops?
Absolutely. So the Tech for Youth that we mentioned, which will be happening in North West Leicestershire, will provide workshops that the people receiving laptops can attend. And they'll attend hopefully with a responsible adult as well who, by luck, that's not the word, will also get to attend and hopefully gain some of those skills. So some of those skills will include turning on a laptop and how to make sure it is attached to a charger, how to use safe Wi-Fi and recognise what that looks like. But we're also going to go into a little bit of detail on that scam side, what that looks like, what setting up a good Gmail or a reputable, other emails exist, what that looks like compared to clicking on those links, what you can look out for when a misspelt email comes in asking you for money. Do you double check who that's come from? That sort of thing. It's maybe stuff that we typically get on your first week at work and you have to click through all the videos. But people haven't necessarily seen all those videos yet, and getting that information across is going to be really crucial.
And at a policy level, we're also working with people like Ofcom. So, of course, they have a number of consultations out at the moment. They have their wider Making Sense of Media work that addresses media literacy, and we are ensuring that we are feeding into that consultation. Even thinking about, if only we had a network of locations across this country that helped young people gather knowledge. We do, they're called schools. So, can we make sure that media literacy is built into that national curriculum, because we know it's so crucial now. Let's come to an online question, and then we'll come to Andy.
So we've got quite a few online questions. I'll just start at the top. Moira Thomas has asked, Elizabeth, a year on from the launch of the National Delivery Plan, what's the one thing you are proudest of?
Oh, the one thing that I'm proudest of. I suppose what I'm really actually incredibly moved by is the number of families that we've been able to support. So the National Delivery Plan, the advocacy work that we do is incredible, and we have seen some fantastic successes, whether this is raising awareness on ITV or the BBC or the being in The Guardian, which is fantastic and starts to get that message across, whether it is about bringing together around 30 different sectors to sit on the National Delivery Committee. But the thing I'm proudest of is that over 4,000 different households in the UK are now online, and we see their messages and we see what that means to them. And whether that's through Tech for Families, whether it's through off-programme donations of kit, we see what that means when parents write to us and say that their child's not being bullied anymore because they're not the person staying behind to use a laptop. Or when somebody else writes to us and says that their son's reading has improved because he can now access the app that is provided by his primary school. That is what really matters, because every single person that we can help through that new device, that is their lives transformed. Andy.
Andy Locke, Coalfields Regeneration Trust. I think you've done more than one thing to be proud of. I was at the launch of the 23 plan, and I think the progress you've made in 12 months is huge. It's really admirable. I've got two quick questions. One is, given the progress you've made, and given your mission to end digital poverty by 2030, how confident are you, with a change of government afoot, that that mission's achievable? And the second quick question is, what are your plans to expand into other delivery areas, so other target areas in addition to the 7 you've got now?
Fantastic. The first question is, sadly, my crystal ball is not working. It's not been working for years. It's very annoying. We really do hope that whatever the change is within government, and of course we will be very keen to work with whoever it is who wins the election within the next month, we hope that they understand that with the pace of technological change, government, we don't expect to tackle digital poverty alone. We don't think that this is we're the government, we're here to help, they're going to go around and sort everybody out. But the convening power, the opportunity that they have to bring different departments together and really signpost as well to industry and to local communities through local authorities that the support is there to tackle this, that is what we think is key from government. Do we think we can end digital poverty once and for all by 2030? We can hope so, and we are working very hard to ensure that we do through this very carefully crafted programme and through ensuring that we have really achievable goals that we can tick off to sort of wear away at some of the foundational problems that sit there. I have lost track of the second question. Oh, it was the delivery areas. Absolutely. So we can only do what we do through the kind funding that comes through partner organisations, through different companies who want to get involved, through organisations that want to donate, whether it's tech, whether it's funding, to be a part of this. However, we are starting to roll out the Northwest Leicestershire programme that Imi has described. We have another couple of programmes which are up our sleeves and just not quite ready to launch yet, but do watch this space. And there are other areas that we're very keen to be starting to tackle. So these include areas such as the North East, the South West, the East Coast of Scotland, and more. So if there are organisations that want to get involved, whether that is funding a Tech for Youth scheme, as I say, whether it's giving kit, Even if you're a local authority and you'd love to set up an individual device donation scheme, which doesn't cost you anything, please do get in touch, because that's the only way we can expand to more areas, which we definitely want to do. Lady here.
Hello, my name is Ebere from Ofgem. My question is around, you said 20% of children are in digital poverty. Well, I've looked at it as in, how are you guys involved with schools, knowing that those children are the future of tomorrow? So how are you guys involved in schools like primary schools and secondary schools?
So the genesis of the Digital Poverty Alliance as an organisation has its roots in our parent charity, the Learning Foundation. And the Learning Foundation has worked for over the last 20 years with schools to help them to get technology into the hands of children through class-wide or year group-wide programs. So we continue to run this. It's a sustainable scheme. Again, there's leaflets at the back if you happen to be in the room about our donation management scheme, where parents who can afford to make contributions towards tech can help to fund programs that we can bring in additional funding through gift aid to support. So that's our roots, that's where we came from. However, we run, as I've mentioned, we run delivery projects that get kit to children, and these are growingly supported by the workshops that will mean it's not just about passing out laptops and resources packs, but there's that human interaction as well. We have run our Tech for Teachers program, which started to analyse the level of access and confidence that teachers have in being able to access digital tools, use them within their teaching practice, use them within their wider work, and pass that knowledge on. And I think it was around a quarter of teachers actually said they don't feel confident enough in their own skills to use tech in their teaching, let alone start passing those skills on to the children who they support. So we're continuing to do that. We've run our Tech for Schools program as well. Again, working with parents, teachers, and children to ensure safe and effective use. Part of what we're doing alongside that delivery is really, as I alluded to, advocating for the need to have a digital and media literacy segment within the national curriculum that is much deeper. There is the focus on computer science, which of course is incredibly important. We need the next generation of techies coming through. But at a basic level, digital access is fundamental to all of our lives. Whether it should be, it is. So we need to accept that. And we also need to understand that even children who do have access to smartphones, you can't be doing homework, you can't be writing A-level coursework on a smartphone, perhaps with a smashed screen. So why do we meet so many people who are doing just that? And actually, if you take one thing away from this session, please do remember that that is a reality for a number of children within this country, is that that is what they are trying to do, and that's what we're trying to combat. I'm going to bring the session to an end because I feel like I could certainly go on all day, and I suspect there's quite a few questions about the NDP. We're having a comfort break in a bit, so do come up and find us if you'd like to ask us more questions, and do keep the chat going online as well. I don't know why I'm looking to my colleague who is running the chat, because of course you're not looking at me if I'm looking over there. If I could get our panellists up on stage for our first panel, which is going to be ably chaired by Wyn from VMO2, and I'll leave you all to introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you, first of all, to the Digital Poverty Alliance for inviting me along today. Elizabeth, thank you for that first session, and Imi, of course, as well. I think I'm willing to bet that I'm not the only person in this room who will go home tonight, probably myself and my wife and my child, and I'll watch as we walk from one room to another, with not even thinking about the fact as we do that with our device, we get the connectivity, and I'll probably move from one device to another, and at some point, one of us will probably try carrying 2 or 3 devices between rooms as we just take all that for granted. And yet we hear today that we take it for granted, it's the norm, but 1 in 5 children cannot get access to the internet through their device or connectivity, which is just shocking. So I will get on to introducing the panel in a second. A reminder, Imi will be looking at the online questions, and of course, we will also be handing the microphone around, so do please wait for the microphone to come to you. I haven't even introduced myself yet, so I'm Wyn Roberts. I'm Head of Public Sector at Virgin Media O2. I'm here today with my colleague, Freya. We'll both be very happy to speak to you all later on. Freya is our lead for digital inclusion. The subject matter today is bridging the gap, innovative approaches to connectivity, affordability. Not very easy to say, but I think we all know what it means. And before I go on to the panel, I just wanted to give, if you'll amuse me, a couple of minutes on my own sort of learning journey and understanding, because Elizabeth mentioned about digital poverty and what does that mean. So the little journey I've been on, and I'm very much still on, if you like, it's one probably of complete ignorance to less ignorance, I guess, as I'm moving along. But I moved into public sector at Virgin Media O2 about 5 years ago. Not long having been there, I saw an article come out from the company about how we were working on a program called Community Calling with a charity called Hubbub, and that was similar to what we've heard now about taking old smartphones, wiping the data, cleaning it, and making sure they're made available to those people in need. I thought it was a nice little story. I thought I'm going to put that on LinkedIn. You know, I may work for a big corporate, but we're nice people as well, that sort of attitude, if you like. And I put it on LinkedIn, and I was getting the usual likes and a few warm comments. Very, very good. And then sort of out the blue, an ex-colleague put a comment on saying, nice idea, Wyn, but all well and good having the device, but if they can't afford the device, they probably can't afford the monthly tariff. So yeah, well done. You give them a nice new smart device, but they can't use it. Well done. I thought, hold on a second. I thought I was putting a nice story on LinkedIn. I wasn't expecting this at all. Never mind from an ex-colleague. I thought he was a friend. And then I had to think about it, and I thought, oh no, he's right. He's absolutely right. And then I got into a little bit of that sort of social media panic of, what have I done? I put this story out there. And almost at that stage of that response, all the likes and the nice comments dried up. And I was thinking, why did I even post it? I know it's probably not too late to delete the post, which probably tells you something about my character. But and then I had a slightly more mature and professional thought. I thought I'll go and speak to a colleague, and I said, look, I've had this comment, and they said, well, they're 100% right, but you're not putting 2 and 2 together as ever, Wyn, you know, because we also work with the National Data Bank and Good Things Foundation that will help provide data for people that are getting the free devices. I thought, oh, thankfully, others in this company have thought of the wider picture. And many months later, I then got to hear about the Connect More program that we do, which is involving us going out to working with local authorities to go out and have days, whether it be in libraries or in community centres, to help teach the basic skills. This is from staff volunteering days we have at our company. And I mention this because when Elizabeth talks through what does digital poverty mean, there's a few things there, and it doesn't cover all the points Elizabeth mentioned, but the device, the data, the basic skills, one of those alone is probably completely useless. In fact, 2 of the 3 are potentially completely useless as well. So, you know, it really brings home to me what the National Development Plan and what the Digital Poverty Alliance are doing is really looking at how we are all here today, because not one organization or a few people or the Digital Poverty Alliance alone can do this, but how do we work together to try and you know, make that better for everyone in our country. So that's enough from me, because we've got some questions to get through with the team. And so probably a good time to do some introductions. We'll start nearest to me. Vicky, do you want to go first?
Hi, my name's Vicky Burgess and I work for Rochdale Borough's local authority. And I have nothing to do with the digital side of our organisation. I'm a work and skills officer and I'm here because we had an opportunity and it tied in with the work that we did around work and skills.
I'm Phoebe Sleet. I am the Policy and Insights Manager for the Digital Poverty Alliance. And I feel a little bit cheated in my introduction because Elizabeth has covered everything that we do. In my personal life, I have no choice but to be online digitally. My partner works in tech, so we have to have top-of-the-range internet and PCs and things that I don't understand, but now I have to. So coming to the Digital Poverty Alliance was really quite a jarring experience, finding out that up to 19 million people can't get online in some way, don't have access, don't have availability. So I'm really pleased to be here. I'm pleased to be here at the NDP event, launching this so that we can eradicate digital poverty by 2030.
Hi there, my name is Chris Thompson. I'm the Chief Exec of Meshi Wi-Fi. My journey started probably during COVID times, actually. I've supported a couple of schools, and they have, so the government provided a lot of devices for families, and there was that issue of the broadband not being available, so for quite a few of the families. So quickly realized a solution needed to be made, so we created this cool little device. Took us a couple of years to do, but basically it allows people to share their unused internet, whether they're in a business or at home, and get that connectivity out to the people that need it for almost free is the idea, because at the end of the day, like Elizabeth said, it costs money for that broadband connection, and there's a lot of untapped internet out there available, so we're kind of enabling that to happen, and that's why we're here.
Thanks. Thanks all three for joining us. First question, I know I'm going to come to you first, Vicky, because of work that you're doing at Rochdale. So how are you using technology to drive innovation in tackling affordability?
Well, see, that sounds very complicated, doesn't it? And as somebody who is not of the tech world, but is of a work and skills world, it was a very dawning realisation during the pandemic that we had masses of people in our communities who did not have access to the internet, and everything was fastly becoming internet-based. Any support you needed was moving online, and the disparity between the haves and the have-nots was getting wider and wider. And as a work and skills group, we were given a small grant to do some work around connectivity. And Rochdale's one of 10 boroughs in Greater Manchester, and most of the other boroughs use their grant to buy laptops and MiFis and get devices out. But we had a very innovative guy that's done a lot of work in our communities previously, who said, you can use the much better way of using the money. And we installed a mesh network. It was installed in one of our most deprived areas in Rochdale, an area called College Bank. It has 7 high-rise flats, so you can imagine the amount of people that live within that community. And so for £30,000, we installed a mesh network that now supports regularly 4,000 users. It's ongoing, it's very sustainable. In many ways, the stars were aligned. We had a housing association that were keen to work with us. We've got a local internet provider in the borough, Zen Internet, who were happy to support it. And we had a chap who was willing to give his all to push it out there. We were just conduits. But what we insisted was that internet had to be equivalent to, if not better than, anything that was available commercially. It wasn't to be a second-rate offer. That those communities deserved that the best we could afford to provide for them, and that we backed it up with devices and skills. So we tied it in with the launch of a digital library. So we have tech that's donated, wiped, and then put back into communities. And we use the Good Things Foundation digital kit to get data out to other communities. And we have a team of people on the ground who are teaching skills. So nobody's given a device without checking whether they can use that device and that it's fit for purpose. So it's really meaningful. But there's a lot to do. But it can be done, and it can be done very cheaply. It doesn't need overthinking. It just needs people to be a bit bold and go for it.
That's great, thanks, Vivian. And what I like about that is probably the easiest thing you could have done is follow the other 9 authorities and buy a load of devices, but you went your own way and it showed a bigger picture.
We do keep thinking we'll get caught out, and we do think somebody's going to come and say, well, you can't do that. And so appearing on things like this makes us a bit nervous, and we think, oh, somebody's going to come. But actually, we're not an IPS. We're not taking anybody's data. All we're doing is providing that. We've paid for that internet. It's not free to us, but you can buy a lot of bandwidth for £18,000, and it can get to a lot of people.
Thank you. Phoebe, same question to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I like what you said about it doesn't need to be some big sort of overwrought solution, does it? Like, and you said as well about during the pandemic how, you know, we had all these things taking off, all this sort of work at home and education at home and staying at home. And that's really a thing that we did see during the pandemic, as that things were at cost to someone being provided for free. We had the NHS app and website, educational opportunities were all being provided free to the user by networks, and that's to a large extent gone away now, with a few exceptions. But the infrastructure's there, the technology's there. There's no reason that that couldn't happen again. And I think that there was a private members' bill that was meant to be debated in Parliament this month, but obviously that's not going ahead, to that effect. So there is something we can do there. There are these little solutions, there are these sort of pieces of the puzzle that we can put together to be able to help people get access.
We were concerned that we might get some feedback from big organisations that charge us all very royally for the privilege of being on the internet. However, the communities that we are serving through the mesh network are not communities that would be using those facilities. They simply cannot afford it. And for us, whilst the social tariff sounded great, if you haven't got £30 a month to pay for your internet, you haven't got £20 a month, and you haven't got £15 a month, the communities that we've provided the internet to through the mesh haven't got £5 a month. So the social tariff doesn't support them. So it's nobody loses because there is nothing to lose. Everybody benefits. And that's why we were insistent that offer had to be as good of, if not better, as good as, if not better, than what was available if they were paying a contract.
Thank you. Chris?
I'm not sure there's much more to say on it. I think you made a good point about a piece of the puzzle. I think there's a lot of people in the room here that could be a piece of the puzzle to deliver the solution to all those areas like Rochdale, and there's lots of councils that could get involved, I think, and achieve the exact same thing. I mean, you've done it, been there, done that, and it's working, and it's just, you know, making note of that and rolling it out, getting it done. So what we're trying to do, be that one piece of the puzzle as well, and so yeah, well done.
It's a great way to look at it. As I said before, there's no few people or one organisation that can sort this out. It's a lot of pieces of the puzzle, as you say there, Chris. So, and I'll stay with you, Chris, because I think the next question it'll run on from what you were saying before and what you do. It seems like there's a ladder to start with mesh and then move to one-to-one connectivity.
Yeah, that's right. I guess we kind of look at ourselves as the bottom rung of that ladder. For people to get online, and the biggest thing we were struggling with is how do we get that service out for free, and we've come up with a way to do that. It's partnering with larger ISPs like Subverge and things like that to get it out there. So we found a way to do it and get people on that bottom rung, because once they're on that and they get up on their feet and they're able to, get jobs, or children who get online and they're progressing, they will probably go for the better services that are out there. They'll probably utilize the super high speed internet that'll do the gaming and all that kind of stuff. But they just got to get online, and it's got to be good enough to get the children online and work and that kind of thing. So yeah, that would be the bottom rung, I guess, the ladder.
That's what's shining through already today, and what you've just said then, I don't know how many times Elizabeth would have said about children or families or households, and that's when it's really hitting home what digital poverty can mean. Sorry, Phoebe, anything further to add on that point?
Yeah, I think actually the points you both raised about that being the bottom rung of that ladder, and you were saying earlier about people who don't have £5, never mind 30. There's this premium that comes with being in digital poverty. I think there was one study I read that said it was almost £500 a year for people who don't have access to, even see what deals are out there, sort of because there's so much more on the internet that they can look at. So £500 a year, that's not nothing, is it? So being able to get them online, being able to get them in a position where they can learn how to find those deals, how to be able to save money just by being online, is massively important for people who don't have that £5.
And I remember talking maybe 3 or 4 years ago about supporting people to get online, because we thought it was a good idea that people should have these skills. And we used to talk to people about, you get better car insurance deal. People that we're talking to now haven't got cars. It's not about the best deal online. It's about being able to play the game that all your pals are playing of an evening when you're not in school, so that you can go to school and be sociable with your peers and not feel left out. And for an individual who's 8 or 9, that's massive, or 14 or 15. If you're not doing what your peers are doing, you're on the outside. And life is hard enough when you're in poverty, and we see it all the time in our communities. So to be digitally impoverished as well is just another punch in the face, really, for our young people. It's vitally important that there's more parity for families.
Thank you. Very powerfully put there, Vicky, and it brings it home. We've got one more question for the panel before we come out to Q&A, and I think it's an important one. We mentioned before some of the important things that define digital poverty. We've discussed the devices, the data and connectivity, the skills. The most difficult, perhaps, part of this is how do we make sure everyone's aware of what's available to them out there? And that's true in life, whether it's about business and selling products, as I often do, or something like this in social value and digital poverty is the Connect More programs I've been on. I've seen how some of the local authority work, they've done a really great job of getting the noise out there and we get good attendance, and others haven't quite succeeded. So how do we bring that awareness? I'm going to start this time with yourself, Phoebe.
So this is a huge issue for the DPA. I mean, it's mission 2 of the NDP. So it's, we know exactly how important it is. But I mean, that awareness, that sort of bringing awareness to the fore is, excuse me, it's one of those things where if you aren't aware of what's out there, then how do you know what you don't know? So, I mean, what you were talking about social tariffs earlier. I think take-up of social tariffs in 2022 was 5% of all eligible people. And a huge part of that was because people aren't aware of what's out there. They aren't aware of the things that they're eligible for. They aren't aware of the discounts or, social tariffs. And a big part of that is because there's no advertising for them, or the advertising is online where they can't access. So that's another huge part of it, and it's why we need to partner with, local authorities and NHS trusts and people who are on the ground, who are in that local area, who know the area, who know the needs of the people in the area. And it's also why we have such a focus on hard copy, why we've provided so many hard copies here, and why we've got leaflets, and why we're still campaigning to sort of slow that digital switchover until everybody's online, is because people need to have access to that information in a way that they can access it effectively.
Chris?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like for us, when we to get the message out there, we did literally flyer drops in the communities all over the place, just using paper, because obviously they can't get online. They have no idea that it's available to them. And then it's also using or getting into the community centers, the community halls, the churches in the area, what else? Yeah, so we got the churches, community halls, social advocates. There's loads of ways, loads of sort of ambassadors almost out there that'll get the message out for you. And also they generally work in the communities that need help, and they've got people coming to them almost asking for help. So they can kind of get that message out there a lot easier than us in a lot of ways. Yeah, it's kind of how we've been doing it.
Vicky? We've used our library systems, and when we launched the mesh network in the area that we did, we were still allowed to be outside and connect with people outside. So we literally walked around the estate talking to people about what was available and getting them to bring devices to us to get them connected. And it started very quietly and very unassumingly, and it's grown. But yeah, we use the housing association have got guys that are working in those communities, so it's about getting them to get the message to individuals and families rather than trying to do a blanket approach across the whole estate. It's easier to do it with individuals.
It's a trust thing as well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
They only want to sort of talk to people about it that they trust, and so it'll be...
And you try telling somebody they can have the free internet and see the kind of reaction you get from it. They don't believe you. So there's a massive thing around trust, and it not just being about... We didn't talk about it being an offer from the council or from it being an offer from their landlord. It was about it just being a free offer to residents of Rochdale because we wanted to build that trust.
Thank you very much. It is time to open up questions to the wider group. I've got first hand up for the lady over there.
Hi, I'm Julie Minns. I'm the Labour Party candidate for Carlisle, so thank you very much for coming to our wonderful city today for this event. I've got a question. I do have a background in the communications sector, and I wondered, given the fact that Ofcom is now 21 years old, whether the panel thinks that Ofcom has failed on the question of ensuring that connectivity is affordable for both citizens and consumers over those 21 years.
Can anyone confirm if they're from Ofcom, by the way, before we answer? Who wants to take that one first? I'm going to go to Chris as a man from industry and a CEO.
I mean, yeah, failed's a bit of a harsh word, but I'd say they definitely... I think they're realizing now they need to be doing more, and that message has been pretty clear to them. They've made adjustments to their website. I think they're getting the message across better than before, and I think they still need to do better. They still need to be out there, reaching out, getting the message out there. I mean, that's part of their remit, so yeah, they could be doing a lot better.
I guess my answer would be along the lines of, could Ofcom do more, or could they have done more? Then I could look at a lot of organisations and ask the same question, and I think it goes back to something for me I mentioned earlier. I think, one, can we all do more? Then probably the answer to that has to be yes, given some of the stats we've seen. But one organisation alone, I wouldn't point the finger on this subject about Ofcom and say it is their fault. I think everyone has to take a share of both the blame and the successes that happen. So I would never look at myself, one organisation. I think we all have a responsibility here, would be my view.
I think as well, a lot of the trend for about the last 20 years has been just connectivity. Like if you're connected, then you're digitally speaking, you're okay. And I think it's been a more recent trend that we've maybe started to understand that there are more dimensions to this, that there's more, from a policy perspective, there's more to this than just getting people connected. You're online, you're great.
I have to be very aware that I work for a council and that we're online. But the fact that we are still talking about digital poverty in 2024 suggests to me that not as much has been done as could be done. And it shouldn't be unaffordable for anybody. The idea of not having running water in your home is completely unreal to all of us. Digital connectivity is as important as that for families, and we should be pushing for it to be a fourth utility.
Yep, thank you. And you have to be aware because you work for a local council. I have to be aware because I work for a telecoms company answering about Ofcom. So the gentleman there on the right.
Just picking up on that last question, and particularly from the questioner, is there a need for government intervention? Do we need, I believe, 5 years ago in a manifesto for the Labour Party was free internet connectivity? Do we need a repeat of that? And what I would say is that there is, in the US, there is the Affordable Connectivity Programme. Is there an opportunity for the UK to have a similar type of scheme in place?
I'm quite happy to have a debate about this. It's a while since I've talked about telecommunications. I guess what I would look at over the 21 years were the opportunities that the regulator had to drive more competition into the sector. And I would specifically cite not going as far as they could have done on things like mobile switching, which would put people more in control of being able to switch without being dependent on going back to their existing provider, which of course allows the provider to offer you, as we all know, that little deal where you might get £5 less, but that's not an offer that's in the market, right? So we're all missing out on that little offer that you can negotiate because perhaps switching isn't what it should be. I'd also cite some of the decisions that were made around spectrum auctions, where again, more could have been done to drive competition into the market that could have lowered that price. And I'm aware that obviously you've got a universal service obligation now for broadband, but I believe the sort of capped cost of that is £56 a month. Which just sounds ridiculous when we all know you can walk out of here and probably pick up a mobile broadband contract for less than half of that price. So I don't want to be too harsh on Ofcom, but I think after 21 years, perhaps we should be looking at what the opportunities have been over those 20 years to drive competition to ensure we have greater affordability, and for the next 20 years, look at how we can learn from some of those less than ambitious policy interventions.
And I guess it's the next 20 years that's going to be the most important because we can't change the last 20 years, so if there's any learnings to be taken. I'm not sure there's anything else to add from the panel. So I got Imi, any online questions?
Yes, we have a couple of questions online. I'm going to pull them together because they're very similar. So, Vicky, there's a lot of admiration for all that you've done in Rochdale. So where did the budget come from, and is there a sort of budget for a continuation of this long term? But I also want to pull in the question around, has any other local authority followed your lead, or are there any other mesh networks around? What are the opportunities around that mesh networking side?
Okay, the initial money came from the adult education budget to support connectivity during the pandemic. There is a will from housing associations to continue because actually the biggest cost is the bandwidth. And as I said, £18,000 for 3 years to support several communities is a drop in the ocean, really. So hopefully, moving forward, we'll work with housing associations to provide the funding for that. And as for other local authorities, we have been asked, it's a lovely compliment to be asked by other authorities about what we did. I am not the techie person about that, but we do have guys who have responded. I know Greater Manchester are looking at it. Norwich were looking at something similar in one of their housing stocks, and a couple in Yorkshire. I think it's a no-brainer, but I could be wrong.
I think you've shown, though, Vicky, that you don't need to be the tech person to show the benefits of what that decision has brought. That's the main thing. It's the outcome and the benefit, not the technical side of things.
I think sometimes not thinking at that technical level, somebody just saying to you, you could do this. And we said, well, why are we not? And they said, well, we just need some bandwidth. Well, can we buy that? Yeah. Okay, well, let's buy it. Well, who's going to host it? Well, we need somebody near this housing association. We need somebody near the flats. All right, okay. We've got the Cooperative Heritage Trust. Rochdale's the home of the cooperative. We go and speak to them. They go, oh yeah, that would really improve our internet connection. We'd be happy to host it for you. And suddenly, there it is.
Thank you. Amy, any further questions before I go? I'm not sure how we're doing for time before we go out to the audience again.
Well, we've got another 10 minutes of questions.
I've not seen another hand up. Oh, sorry, there's a hand up here.
There was one other part of that question, which was that kind of extended mesh networks, and I wondered if Chris might also have something to feed into that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, our mesh network is slightly different than the one Rochdale's. Rochdale's is a mesh network that can get it out there to the community. Ours does the same thing, but ours kind of has the ability for everyone to get involved into it. So it's not just the council, but other businesses can get involved, other homes can get involved. Everyone's got unused internet. We're all sat here right now. Our internet's not being used, or a lot of it. Maybe we've got, people at home using it, but a lot of it. The point is, there's a lot of unused internet. So, and that's not. It doesn't cost to share it. So, that's where we're coming from. Just get a device. I mean, we're almost giving the devices away in a lot of ways.
It's another no-brainer, Chris.
It's another no-brainer.
It's another no-brainer.
Another no-brainer. Just put it on the roof, share it, job done. Get it out there, right? So, yeah, there you go.
We had a hand up at the front, and then we'll come to the gentleman at the back.
National Pensioners Convention. The thing is, everybody's been talking about awareness, but I've been racking my brain to think whether I've ever read in the national media, newspapers or on the television, about digital poverty. And really, I mean, despite all the efforts of the Digital Poverty Alliance, really, the national media is not really bothered. And if they were to just take an interest and sort of push a campaign, it would be a very good thing, because it just needs publicity, national publicity like that. And the national media, like the papers and things, don't seem to want to do that. It's part of the market, probably, because they don't want to affect anybody's... I'm sorry, I'm not... I know you're interested in, Virgin, etc., but at the same time, that's possibly what it is. They don't want to rock the boat in regard to the cost and things, which should... they should have a conscience about that, but obviously that doesn't get anywhere. Anyway, what does anybody think about the fact that the...
Well, it was one of the three questions about, as I say, we can get everything lined up, brilliant ideas, all the right intent, all the enthusiasm. If, as you said, Phoebe, as you said before, if people don't know, they don't know. Have we had successes in national press or even perhaps local press, Vicky, when these programs have gone out?
We tend to be our best kept secret, really. And it is hard building trust in communities that, for whatever reasons, have usually had poor experiences in the past. So yeah, maybe we should shout a bit louder about it.
And I think the conversation has changed a lot since the pandemic too. Before, as I was saying, there was a real push for connectivity, and that was what governments did. That's what people cared about, is how many people can we physically get online? How many people can we get a connection to? So I think the pandemic really changed people's understanding of how much we rely on the internet now, how much we rely on these digital skills for education, for work. You can't find a job without a computer now. You can't go to school or university without a computer now. You can't do, I mean, you can barely do banking.
Access your GP.
Honestly, I can't think of anything that I don't use a computer for to access now. So in terms of awareness, I think that is on the rise a little bit. But I think we are like quite early doors at the moment. So I think we're working on changing that conversation. There was a second thing you said, and I've forgotten what it was, that was quite interesting. I sidetracked myself, sorry.
No, sorry. There's no sort of general push and campaign in the media to encourage the idea and to realise that people are in digital poverty. In regard to what you're saying about children, people from many generations, the fact that all these things, they need to be online and people just can't afford it for one reason or another. And nobody's pushing this in the papers. No, I'm sorry.
And if we carry on the trajectory we're on, it's only going to get worse. I think the government this year, the last year or the year before said that by 2030, digital skills are going to be our biggest skills gap. So there are going to be 5 million working-age adults who aren't going to have these key skills as well. So it's a moral argument and it's a financial one as well.
If we can fit, we've got a question at the back for the gentleman here, and I think another hand up here, and I think they'll be probably our last two questions before we go for a break. So, yeah, to the man at the back first.
Thank you. Andrew Sterling. I should note that I have worked for Ofcom in the past and noted some interesting parallels with digital switchover, where we face challenges on affordability and complexity in getting people moved on to a new platform. But I was thinking that the universal service obligation is something that Ofcom has been playing with in recent years, maybe been thinking about. Is there perhaps a case for revisiting that, recasting it as basic digital access, and universal service was about geographic, but this could be about affordability too. So is that an opportunity?
I mean, the answer to that, because I think you're right in what you just said there about it's probably being looked at things from a more of a geographic point of view. As someone who grew up in mid-Wales and has a brother still living in the middle of nowhere who told me all the years I've been working in telecoms about why can't I get broadband where I live, and then why can't I get 3G and then 4G and then 5G where he lives. And we have those sort of universal service obligations. We've got the shared rural network that was taken by industry to Ofcom to get that agreement in place. I think it's a good point you make, though, that it's probably had, as far as media awareness, it's probably been more about geographic location as much as what about the digital poverty and the ability and the access. I'm not sure if anyone else has got any further thoughts on.
I mean, it just needs to be part of the agenda, doesn't it? The government needs to make it part of their agenda, and that's going to drive the media, because they drive the media, let's face it. And then there's the big organizations, they need to get involved because they drive the narrative as well, and that's can also drive Ofcom to do their bit. So, I think we're all trying to push them. The DPA is definitely trying to push any way they can, and we're all trying to do it. So it's creating that awareness, right? So it's early days. It's definitely early days, but we're making some headway.
I have also recently had the chance to study the Affordable Connectivity Program, which sadly came to an end. I think it's this week the last payment will be made in the US, where they included, I think, up to $100 for an initial device, and then it was basically up to $30 per month that you could deduct from your broadband bill. And some providers have now, since that program's ended, dropped their price down to $30 in an attempt to try to ease the transition with the end of the program. But basically, it was a COVID support response, And I suspect that's why it's not been continued.
Okay, maybe one for the coffee break. I do want to allow the gentleman here to have the final questions. We've got 1 minute left. He's been waiting patiently, but thank you, Andrew.
Thanks. Andy Locke, Coalfields Regeneration Trust. Question for you, actually, Wyn. So, given what I've heard, I think the Rochdale model sounds absolutely no-brainer, right? And in the spirit of cooperatives, what kind of challenge do you get, or what opportunities, shall I say, do you see for communities coming together to procure broadband at reduced rates through economies of scale? So you've got brokers within the energy sector, so we work with a partner who secures better deals for charities. But, what opportunities are there for the big ISPs like yourself to work with communities more proactively to try and support cooperative models like this, albeit this has been led by the local authority? Because it just seems for a very small amount of investment, and I'm not quite sure what the return on investment would be from a social value perspective, Vicky, but I think there's a challenge to me, to the ISPs, to see how they can actually back deprived neighbourhoods in supporting them through that connectivity.
100%, and believe me, we would love to work with more local authorities. I've discussed some of the programs we have around Connect More as an example. So I myself have attended those sort of volunteer days to look at basic digital skills in Manchester, or Wythenshawe to be more specific, in Birmingham, Telford and Wrekin, which is a little bit more local to where I live. We do tech lending hubs. I guess, Freya's here, who's our digital inclusion lead. I think that we'd like to have more, and some of that, once again, comes down to the awareness. So wherever possible, I work in sales, have done for over 30 years, wherever possible, we try and talk when we're talking to local authorities about not just what products we sell, but what else, how can we work together? So I guess my answer would be we'd welcome working with more local authorities and using some of these experiences that Vicky's taken us through to say, well, how can we contribute to that? How can we work together? It's the awareness thing, again, I think, in the people's priorities. We all know we should be doing this, but everyone's really busy, and it's how we can get more people on board with those sort of projects that we do. Anyone here today, myself and Freya are here, we'd love to talk to you about any work that you do, and is there a social value, digital poverty angle that we can look at working together on? Because, I'll say this on behalf of industry, not just Virgin Media 2, we all have to play a part in this. This shouldn't be down the lines of we're Virgin Media 2, so we do it best. It's about how can we work together on this. But yeah, welcome to anyone grabbing us over the coffee break if they're from a local authority, and I'd set up a meeting. I've gone over, haven't I? Can I just thank very much again Digital Poverty Alliance. Thanks for the questions, thanks for the online questions, and thanks Chris, Phoebe, Vicky. Thank you very much.
Thank you to our fantastic panelists. Thank you again to Wyn for navigating us through what's actually a really quite complicated topic.
So, hello, I'm David Burrows. I'm going to chair the session. I'll introduce my esteemed panel in just a moment. Just to remind you, as Chris did, we're going to go through a little bit of a discussion about what the organisations represented by my colleagues on the platform are doing in this very important space, particularly in how do we help the users get the benefit of the technology, presuming the technology is available as was discussed on panel one, but actually I'd argue the two things are very much hand in hand. Also, we are getting quite a few questions online, and in deference to our online colleagues, I'm going to try and take a few more of their questions, but that doesn't mean I'm going to discourage you from asking questions in the room. It's just we want to make sure that our online colleagues are feeling included, even though they're online and not here in the analog world in person. I'm chair of the Digital Poverty Alliance National Delivery Committee, and I've been involved with the e-Learning Foundation, which Elizabeth alluded to earlier as the kind of founding body or the underlying organization since it was founded actually more than 20 years ago now. At that time, I worked for a company called Microsoft. A few of you may have heard of. And I persuaded the corporation to give £1 million donation to start that charity at that time. 24 years or so later, to pick up on the theme discussed on the earlier panel, we haven't finished what we set out to do. You heard the stats, they're kind of scary. 1 in 5 school-age children still have no access to the right kind of pedagogically sound learning environment outside of the school. Arguably, even still some in the schools don't. We are working in that space, as Elizabeth said. We continue to work in that space. It's a job probably that's still got a long way to go. What we have done, of course, with the DPA is we've broadened the agenda from just that initial focus on digital poverty in families with school-aged children to encompass a much broader remit. And we're not doing that alone, of course. We're called the Digital Poverty Alliance because we are an alliance of many bodies, some who are here, many of whom aren't, or are only able to join online, and many more we hope to welcome as we move into phase 2 of the delivery plan and to be part of that. But I particularly want to thank the core alliance partners who are members of the National Delivery Programme and the committee that I help support with the executive of the DPA. Now, in a slight change to the published programme, I'm pleased to welcome the panel, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves shortly. So if I get this right, going from your left to the right, we're starting with Diana Webb, who's Head of Digital Inclusion at Phoenix Group. And we were discussing before we started the session, has anybody heard of Phoenix Group, apart from, Rise from the Ashes? If you've got a product from Standard Life, Reassure, Pearl, Sun Life, I'm not asking for a show of hands, but they're all the brands that are part of the Phoenix family. And I have quite a few of them, it turns out, for various reasons. So I'm a customer of this particular corporation. Next along, we've got Pamela Betts. Pamela has joined, or Pam is a project manager from the No Digital program at the Centre for Sustainable Innovation at Salford Business School. She's stepping in for a colleague who unfortunately couldn't be here, so special thanks to Pam at late notice for doing so. And you did hear a question earlier from my third panellist, Violet Rook is a member of the Digital Working Group at the National Pensioners Convention. So we're trying to span, quite a lot here. So all three are here to help provoke a discussion, and we'll get into Q&A. But I, like before with Win, want to just share a few additional experiences and perspectives before we ask the panel. As access to technology has become generally more ubiquitous, almost all of it now seemingly embeds itself in our everyday life without us almost consciously knowing. And that's fine for those of us who are both lucky enough and skilled enough to be able to afford and use that access. There's just a huge, huge world of possibilities that open to us. But I'm reminded of William Gibson's famous 2003 quote, pauses to see if anybody's light bulbs go on. The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. Familiar with that? In the case of technology, we were able to take the man to the moon with the same amount of technology that now it's in the palm of your hand as a mobile phone. It seems kind of weird. I remember being allowed to stay up to watch the moon landings. I'm that old that was allowed, even on a school night. But how many of you use a camera now? Like a proper SLR camera? A few, but most people don't. You use your phone. Your phone's a multi-purpose, ubiquitous device. And because despite all the advances in the power of those devices and, for the most part, better coverage of broadband and Wi-Fi, still a significant part of our population can't make use of it and are excluded from active participation in the digital economy in all its guises. The previous panel, talked a lot about the issues on what I call the hard side of things, the physical devices, the network infrastructure. This session's the other side of that coin, as I said at the beginning. This is the soft side. It doesn't mean it's any softer or less important, but we tend to call this the sort of the soft skills, the digital skills, the media literacy skills, the keyboard skills, the cognitive skills, and the other competencies to make us safe and allow us to make constructive use of the capabilities. And I was thinking through all the examples just in maybe a day or a week of how I would use technology, either a laptop, this isn't mine, but one similar, or my phone. And I started ticking off a list of the things I've done in the last 24 hours. Online shopping, online banking, an insurance renewal comparison quote, booking travel, booked theatre tickets, made a restaurant reservation, made a hotel reservation, made a doctor's appointment, accessed other specialist medical help online, applied for government benefits on part of another family member, and ended up paying for parking for a short trip to buy groceries. All online. All online. Didn't speak to anyone, didn't part with any real money, didn't transact in the way that my late mother would understand it, and didn't give it really a second thought. So even if you knew these opportunities existed, and even if you had the physical means to get access, do you have the skills? Do you trust the system? Do you have the confidence to do so? For many who have not been included, who suffer from those, lack of skills, lack of trust, lack of confidence, we all race ahead and they risk being left further and further behind. So, we're going to hear from some panelists now to share their thoughts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of them briefly to just introduce themselves and their organisation. We've discussed 3 questions that I'm going to ask them initially, and then we're going to open it up, as I said, both to our online and our audience here in the Fratre Hall. So we're going to start with Pam. Pam,
hello,
what's
everybody.
your name? Where'd you come from?
Come from Liverpool. I'm Pam from Liverpool, and I work for Salford University. I work in a very new department called the Centre for Sustainable Innovation. And within that department, we do lots of different projects. And the project that I'm project managing on is called Centre for Digital Innovation. So there's lots of acronyms there. I'm sure you can work it out. We talk in them. But primarily, the one that I'm really passionate about is called No Digital. And it's upskilling the youngsters of the Greater Manchester area and small businesses. The platform is all about how to be safe online, etc. I'll go more details later. But I also am privileged to project manage another project which complements the No Digital platform, and that's where we're bringing small businesses in who have ideas to keep up with all this digital innovation so that they don't have to close down, or so that they can grow and keep up with the bigger competitors. So it's a really fulfilling role that I've got at the moment, and I think there's an awful lot to give today. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Let's go to you, but you must talk very close to the microphone.
I'm Violet Rook, and I'm a member of the National Pensioners Convention, and that's an organisation for pensioners, as you might gather. And I'm the deputy editor of what's called Connections for All. It's a newsletter which we produce, and we produce that to make people aware of the of digital sort of inclusions and digital exclusions. We try to get articles from various places all over the country to push the idea, to find out what people's problems are, what are their successes, and help them. And we produce this every 2 months. The editor, Jenny, commissions the articles from various places all over the country and people, and finds out about what's happening and sends them to me, and I put them on a 6-page newsletter. And then the newsletter goes back to all the Digital Working Party, have a look, check it, and then that goes to the office and it gets spread all over the country. And we try to push it to local authorities, to the voluntary community sector, health service, to try and make people aware of what's happening in relation to digital poverty and digital exclusion and digital inclusion as well. But we're trying to get these things out there, and we attend various things online and offline about digital situations. And the idea is that we try to make sure that pensioners especially, but anyone, do not become a sort of second-class citizen in relation to what's going on in the digital world, because unfortunately that sometimes is what happens. And you can, I mean, it's wonderful here, everybody here is so positive about digital inclusion and trying to overcome digital poverty. But the problem is there are lots of people out there who think it doesn't exist. And people, and they'll say, I met them, they say it's a bit of exaggeration, etc. And there's no such thing. People have the money, people have the skills, etc. But that's not true of all generations. That's just been quoted by Vicky. There's a big problem, and one of the big problems is that those that have the power don't realise that the problem exists. And we're in the Digital Working Party trying very hard to work with the Digital Poverty Alliance to get that message across that this needs to be sorted out, because we do not want one part of society to be, shall we say, digitally, we can do everything, and the other part of society or somewhere in the distance, and they can't have no connections to anything, and any bargains online, health service, or anything else. And that needs to be pushed very badly, and it's nice to hear everybody here who have got that in mind.
Passionately said. We talked actually just in the preparation about, there's a term out there that the media use called silver surfers. We're all about the silver non-surfers, bringing more people from that cohort, if you like, into the community of people able to use the technology. Last but not least, Diane, please.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm delighted to be here today. And as David has said, I'm from Phoenix Group, but like you, I didn't know who they were. I've only worked for them for a year, and you well better know them as Standard Life, Sun Life, and Reassure. So we offer a broad range of pensions and savings products to people. So key to this for me is financial inclusion, and one of the enablers of financial inclusion, I think, is digital inclusion. And I'm responsible for leading on our digital inclusion strategy across Phoenix Group. But one of the pillars within our strategy is about partnership. So we believe that digital inclusion is a collective responsibility, as has been said today, across all the sectors, and we want to play our part. So anything we do, although we're targeting and supporting our customers, of which we have many, so I do feel that we can have a real impact, we're also trying to support wider society as well, and part of the reason that we're here today and signed and pledged to the Digital Poverty Alliance Digital Inclusion Charter.
Thanks, Diane. Okay, we'll get into the first of the questions, and I'm going to come, I think, to Pamela first. So we know that getting started online is about confidence. We know that's one of the major, if not the major factors. So how can the different groups be helped to balance that need between critical thinking and a level of wariness when we are, potentially in the press, creating this kind of climate of fear around online safety, fraud, scams? I'll come to Diane in a minute, because obviously some of those latter ones are mostly associated with financial crime. But Pamela, maybe you want to talk about that in the context of the youth and small business communities that you're supporting with the Know-How programme.
Yeah, certainly. We did a little stakeholder map at the uni about rolling out our No Digital platform. And there's a lot of different people who are going to be helping sort of share that knowledge for them. So I'm just trying to think in terms of, is it the safety element that you want to talk about? Because on our platform, we've actually got courses that help people understand fraud and scams, etc. And that's all very well me saying that, but you've got to know how to get on it. You guys are getting all the digital equipment and they've got connectivity. We've got to get to the people to say, here's your kit, this is how you get on it, and this is how you'll learn how not to be scammed. This is where you can learn all about artificial intelligence, what it means to you. It's about opening up to small businesses and tapping into them to say, if you don't think you can be that tech savvy, you can. If you can just go on and become aware and understand what it means to you. And that's the thing, it's about stopping those people being fearful of digital change that's coming their way. And so we're trying to open up different avenues for people, whether it be workshops, all across our stakeholders that we've mapped out across the Greater Manchester area.
Great, thanks. Diane?
Yeah, I think there's three things for me. It's all about embedding digital skills, online safety skills within general basic digital skills, embedding them right in there so that it's not left in the I'll do that later, and that's a bit hard. In some of my experience in previous roles, there's been a drive to get people online, and online safety is left as an add-on. And I think that we have a moral responsibility while we're supporting people to get online to also support them to stay safe. The second thing would be around removing the stigma. So scams can affect us all. It's not just older people or vulnerable people. They can impact us all, and we should be having open conversations about that. There's no shame in sharing our experiences. And then thirdly, how can we nudge people just in the right moment when they're making a decision? So for example, you probably have noticed if you're transferring money on a banking app, there'll be a little nudge to say, are you sure? Do you know this person is a trusted source? And I think if we in the financial sector can continue to build that into the customer journey, but balancing that with not making people scared, but just that nudge and reminder along the way.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything on that?
Oh, yes. Well, we're keen to sort of show examples of how people can get online and sort of community involvement. And so we have articles and we have discussions in relation to events where we indicate people organisations which have been successful, like ours in Rochdale. And one of the articles that was in recently was the fact that of how sort of a local town was getting all of its employees involved. It had 800 employees, and all of their jobs, in one way or another, whether it be cleaners or sort of high-tech individuals, all had to have something online. And the lead person on this came and told everybody about it and demonstrated it and what that meant. And the thing is, we reported this and then we discussed it online in various digital events. But the thing is, it's not the case of doing it online. You've got to do it in person, in public, in the community. And the community is the place which needs to have the knowledge. And people are very nervous of various aspects of getting online, as we've said about scams. And you just got to listen to things like radio programs like you and yours about scams, etc., and all the different things that can happen with banking and buying things. And this puts people off. So you've got to get the trust of people and make them aware that not everything is like that. And unfortunately, people have a big barrier sometimes. And as has been said, it's not just silver surface, it's lots of people of lots of age groups. And the thing about this is getting trust. You've got to do it on the community level. And I think this is where the Digital Poverty Alliance comes in and can help people. And we sort of push these topics all the time in relation to being online and one-to-one and in the community, and getting people to want to learn. And that's the only way you can do it, to make people realise that the more they know, and they may frighten them at times, but the more they know, the more they can protect themselves. And to have the little skills which can then be built up into the bigger skills, which then leads to understanding. Because if you haven't got the understanding of what you're doing, you're putting yourself in danger. And that's the thing that needs to be encouraged. And these aspects that we've just been talking about are excellent, but at the same time, it's the one-to-one and making people, not making people, it sounds bad, encouraging people to have an interest online. If they've got an interest, and that is a way in, really. They want the knowledge.
They've got to know the benefits, haven't they?
Pardon me?
They've got to know the benefits.
Yes, they've got to know the benefits, and they've got to know that it will help them in so many ways, not just financially, but in potential, reaching their potential and their children's potential. Because this organisation I was mentioning said that in the community, they found that there was a lot of people who were didn't have the money, but also had various social situations which were preventing them getting online. And that could have been helped if they could have got online, and it could have given them confidence. And therein lies the situation. If you've got the confidence and the trust, you then can stimulate the interest. And that's a big thing. If people think that it's doing them good, not just financially, but mentally, that's an excellent way of encouraging them.
Thanks. I'm going to just sort of concertina the sort of last part in so that we can get to some questions from the audience. We talked a little bit about confidence and trust, almost like they're the same thing, or they're two sides even of a very similar coin. And trust in the system as much as confidence in your own skills. Obviously, the provider side has had to do a lot to try and tighten up on, parental concerns about children accessing harmful content, for example, or businesses at risk through cyber attacks, for example. So all of that's going on the, if you like, on the supply side, if I can call it that. Maybe not enough. The vectors are always changing in terms of where these attacks are coming from, where these scammers are coming from, where the fake news is coming from, and so on. And that's the one I want to sort of just move to, Rich, which is sort of this somewhat artificial separation, which Elizabeth challenged in her remarks at the beginning, between sort of digital skills and media skills. Just because you know how to use the technology doesn't mean that everything that comes to your screen should be believed. And I woke up to the BBC News article on Monday about TikTok feeds receiving fake election news. I'm seeing a lot of nods. That's like, oh my God, so people that are using TikTok, you think, well, they kind of know how to use technology, but then have they got the cognitive skills to kind of figure out this doesn't look like it's genuine, like it's right? So, and the danger with that is you get this kind of echo chamber effect, in social media. So a quick one on this one, and then we'll open to the floor. The question is, do you feel attacking this is a policy solution that's needed, or more about doing more when we're doing digital skills and confidence about the media and the cognitive part of that through community groups and through access programs that are out there? And I'll come to Diana first on that for May.
So my answer would be both, but I'll probably answer in the area that I've got experience in, which is the digital skills, the upskilling. So I think that the digital media literacy training has to be part and parcel of the digital skills training. It's one of the same. But I also think there's maybe a potential to harness the power of AI to try and support people to be prompted or to be nudged to look at what they're reading, or to scan the information. The AI would scan the information, say, like the fact checker, or check your source. So an example of this recently, I was part of a Financial Conduct Authority tech sprint, and one of the ideas that were pitched was a tool within WhatsApp. and it was powered by AI, and you just added it as a contact within your WhatsApp. And if you had got an email or a letter through the door, you just took a picture of it, sent it to your contact in WhatsApp, and it would scan the contents of the email, and it would come back and tell you if there was a red flag or an alert. It will never tell you it's not a scam, but it will prompt you to think and check. And I think that's the thing. It's about taking back the power and building confidence in people so they feel empowered to question what they're reading online and not just assuming that it's true.
It's asking the questions, isn't it? I don't think the youngsters, and I'll give you an example of my granddaughter, who's 18, on her phone all the time. There's too much information that she'll find there. If she gets given a prescription, she'll look at all the side effects, and she won't take that prescription because she knows best, because that's what the internet's telling her. But then if you look at it and we think outside the box, if Taylor Swift told her to take those tablets, she'd take them. And it's, are we thinking the right way in terms of, bringing our youth up on digital understanding and non-misinformation? Just a thought.
But do you not think as well, AI and algorithms, people, they hear the words all the time, all on the media again, etc. And I think the thing is, people should be educated as to why and how they work and what they are, because most people just take, the media say AI, and that's it. So what is AI and how the algorithms work? All these things are manipulated and constructed by human beings. And you need a little bit of knowledge behind that to be able to understand what they're all about. And if in education, in schools, people are taught this, not just digital skills as to how to get on a computer, use a computer, but about the background to what these things are, then in the future, sort of 20 years hence, 10 years hence, we'll have populace who are wise to what's going on. And I also think that, I've said this before to a few people, the aspect of your news, you have to get from many, many sources. You don't have to just listen to it on the television, look at it on the computer, look at it on your smartphone, look at it in the paper. You have to read it and learn and read the background, think of the background, think of what it's really telling you, or could be really telling you, or not. Because even the television, the television now can produce a television series where you have avatars who look, speak and sound like the actual actors and things who you think they are, but they're not necessarily that. So we are, as you said, a future is here, and we shouldn't disregard it, and we shouldn't take it for granted, and we shouldn't we should be aware of how people can manipulate things for their own convenience and financial benefit. So I think the aspect is be aware and read carefully and be aware that not everything is what it seems to be.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to questions. So the mic will start circulating in the room, but we have questions already, Imi, on the internet.
Yes, thank you so much. I think we've heard just a little bit about how there's a lot of information online, there's a lot of different sources and continual bombardment. So with technology moving so fast, with everyone being online and all of this information, how do we keep supporting people to keep up with how they stay safe online as technology changes and there is all this information? How do we support the people through that?
So keeping current, basically, because there's a new scam or a new fake AI almost every day, if not every hour. Anyone want to have a crack at that first?
I think it's maybe just that, having that acceptance that digital it's lifelong learning. None of us knows everything, and we all need to put in that time and effort to keep up to date. So it's maybe around a personal responsibility to do that, as well as maybe responsibility around supporting others and your family or friends. So that collective responsibility again. But yeah, lifelong learning in the future. Although we're talking about AI now, who knows? I think coming back to the meaning of digital exclusion, for all that's a transient position. So it could be that we are digitally excluded 10 years down the line if we do not keep up to date.
But I think as well, in relation to sort of keeping up to date, this also includes equipment keeping up to date. And there again, we have the digital poverty aspect of it. People have to get new phones every 2 years, some phones, not all phones, and then have to, and the computers. And sometimes you have to, the downloads and the updates sometimes make your computer a bit slow. And people don't perhaps have to get a new computer much more often than they need to. Then you have broadband, which keeps various costs sometimes increase. I'm sorry to say, I'm not indicating anybody, but it does increase at times, the broadband. And just people's cost of living keep up with that. So you've got the two things. You've got to be able to keep up with your skills, which sort of maintain the various safeguards that you have on your computers and your phones, etc. But you also have to keep up with the with having broadband, with having the digital devices you have. And therefore, how does one do that? One needs to have the finance, and one needs to have the skills, and this needs to be really, I think this all comes down to the fact that there needs to be an official policy in relation to this, and this aspect of free broadband, and the aspect of broadband is not a luxury. Getting online is not a luxury, just like water isn't a luxury. It needs to be encouraged, because things are not going to, it's not going to stop, it's just going to increase. And what we're going to be like in 2 years' time, even, never mind 10 years' time, is another question. So I think it needs to be a national policy that people, encouraging people to learn about it, encouraging people and giving people the resources to be able to get in, to be able to do it, or otherwise we're going to have a very divided society.
Thank you. I mean, just on that sort of the fourth utility point about running water in the home or broadband, obviously I'm travelling down to the southwest for my sister-in-law's birthday, and if you've been watching the news there, you don't drink the water, brush your teeth or cook with it right now. I mean, again, who would have thought? There is a responsibility on the supply side, as I'd said before, to put up firewalls, to put up a certain amount of infrastructure that can try and trap the obvious cases, but stuff is still going to get through every day, and you've got to just have the skills. My mum used to say, if it looks too good, if it smells too good, it probably is not too good. Just question yourself every time, and I think that will carry us through. There's a question in the back from, I think the lady in the back had her hand up, so we'll go there and then we'll come back to online. Could you just say who you are and your question,
yes,
please?
Yes, good afternoon. My name's Pat Maskell. I am the County Coordinator for AbilityNet in Cumbria.
Welcome.
I classify myself as a ground roots person because I am dealing with older and disabled people day in, day out in all sorts of situations, either in the home or in groups, sessions that I help to run. And I'm hearing from the platform, it's almost as though you think that everybody but everybody ought to be digitally aware. What I will say to you is that there are a lot of people who aren't afraid of it. They are aware that it's there, they just don't want to use it. So they cannot be excluded. That in itself, if they were not to want to use things digital, they're going to be excluded. You can't, I thought the idea of this country was there's a freedom of choice. You can either choose to use it or you don't use it. And to have it forever pushed down people's throats that they've got to, get on board with digital, they've got to do this, they've got to do that, is just slightly wrong. I'm not saying that that's what's coming across totally, but I would just like your opinions on it, please.
I think there was a question in there. I don't disagree with that. My mother, who passed away last year, she was quite astute. She could use the technology. She just said, I want to go down the post office to get my pension. I don't want it paid direct to my bank account. I want it in cash. I want to go chat to the people in the queue, and I want to go buy my groceries. And I think this comes back to something that was in the previous panel about the sort of universal service obligation, particularly for local and central government, which is you can't cut off channels for people. You mustn't cut off channels for people, even if they have the wherewithal, the skills and the access and so on, to go digital if they choose not to. It's trickier in the private sector to enforce that without having the regulator do that or some other kind of policy or legislation. So, Dan, you might want to come back on that in a minute, but I know you're itching to go first. So I'm going to give you the microphone to respond to AbilityNet. And by the way, you do great work. My son, who's disabled, benefited enormously many years ago. Thank you.
Believe me, what you just said, I believe in utterly. I think that if people want to, they should. If they don't, well, no, nobody should force them. And I believe the government should have a policy on that. But unfortunately, the way we are now, everything, as we've all keep saying, is going online. And there should be, but I'm totally against, people being forced to do anything like that. David said about his mother. My brother, who was 93 and died last year, he never went online. He had no intention of doing it. And he wasn't interested, so I didn't push it or anything like that. Me, on the other hand, I've since about the year 2000, I've had to go online more or less for one reason or another. And since COVID, before COVID, I'd never ever done a video, a Zoom or anything like that. But then I thought, well, if I don't, I'll be isolated as can be. My husband will be as isolated as we can be. So I bit the bullet and decided to try it. I was very nervous, and I'm still very nervous. But I think you've got to have the opportunity to do it. And I think the government should not force people in relation to everything being online. But unfortunately, business is doing that. I'm not criticising business. It's just the way of the world, and that's what's going on.
Let's hear from business, because we've only got about 2 or 3 minutes left.
Sure. Just to say, I absolutely agree. I should always caveat when we're talking about digital inclusion, it's got to be a choice, but I think it's got to be an informed choice so that people have the opportunity to understand the benefits, but then make that choice. And within Phoenix Group, we still offer telephone, other offline versions of the service. But what I would say is that for the whole sector, we all must make sure there's a parity of service. So just go online because you'll have a better experience. It should be, or stay offline and just have just as good an experience. So we have a vulnerable customer team and a helping hands programme as well, where it supports people that just need that extra bit of support, especially around disabilities and vulnerabilities as well. As part of the financial sector's Consumer Duty Act as well, to ensure that people have positive outcomes when engaging with the financial sector. But a really good point, and I love the work that AbilityNet do. Thank you.
Okay, do we have one last one online? Because if we don't, we can close. Unless there's somebody in the audience that's got a quick question. We don't have anyone. We must have answered it all. Nope. Nope. Going once. Going twice. I've always wanted to do this. Oh! Somebody beat me to the hammer. Okay, can we go pretty quick to the question?
Really it's not really a question. I just wanted to say a big thank you for being here today in Carlisle and coming up to the Northwest and to Cumbria, because it's very often that we go to events and they're in big cities, they're in Manchester or London, and it's fantastic to see that you've made the effort and the time and the energy to come to a different part of the country.
Well, thank you for that observation. We're trying to be geographically inclusive as well as digitally inclusive as well.
It's a really important
It's great
point.
to be here, actually, and a fantastic venue that's hosting it. Okay, we'll bring it to a close. I want to say thank you to you for participation online, to the folk that have contributed. I want to say, of course, thank you to Diane, to Pam, and to Violet. Thank you very much.
Thank you again to another fantastic panel, and huge thanks to David for so fantastically chairing what is, again, a very complicated subject. We've had some really fantastic and interesting observations today. Whether that was hearing from Rochdale about actually how sometimes it is just doing something a bit different, taking that leap, thinking about a problem in a new way and not just sort of following the herd. And also that really key point that whilst we talk about this in terms of essential services, so we talk about education, we talk about healthcare, we talk about accessing welfare, we talk about jobs, it is also that sense, as Vicky said, of not feeling left out and not being left out. And that social inclusion, whether it's a teenager having seen the latest meme and not being left out in the schoolyard, or whether it's older people being able to connect around interests and build new communities, and everything in between, that is just as essential as essential services. We also heard in that second panel so many points, but this key point of ensuring that we can make digital and media literacy relevant. Many of you will have heard me say before, nobody wakes up one day and goes, I want to learn the internet. Much less do people wake up one day and go, I want to learn media literacy today. So how do we connect this actually into what people want to use these tools for? And absolutely, responding to Pat's point, this is about informed choice. We are not here to push people online. What we are here to do is to keep up with the fact that we are becoming an ever more digital society, and for many, they need support. However, we are here to be a voice for those who are excluded because of that digital society for whatever reason, including if actually, quite frankly, the internet and digital services just isn't for them. I'm going to just talk to you about a few ways, a couple of ways that you can get involved, because this does not finish today. Sadly for the DPA team, publishing the report and running the event is not the end of the work. It turns out quite a lot more to do that comes out of that. However, we've got a couple of opportunities for you as well. So we have referenced a couple of times the new Charter for Digital Inclusion, and we are launching this today. So you can, everybody, I'm hoping if you're online, you are rushing now to find out how you can sign this. Pre-launch, we are absolutely thrilled that a number of organisations, including Phoenix Group, so Standard Life, Sun Life, Currys PLC, Virgin Media O2, Central District Alliance in London, and the Midlands Partnership Foundation NHS Trust have all already signed up and made their commitment so that we launched with signatories on its first day. We've also been really excited to see applications already coming through this morning, with people having seen that on the reel earlier. This isn't just for businesses as well, I should say. It's for local authorities, it's for universities, it's for NHS trusts. It's for anyone with 2 or more employees. So whether you're a PLC, whether you're a massive local authority, whether you're the hairdressers down the road, if this is something that you are interested in and you want to commit to, find out about that charter, and I know that we'll be putting the link in the chat. This is about raising awareness, it's about pledging to take action around accessibility and workplace skills, and it's also about what you can practically do as a business to donate old devices or form meaningful partnerships. So if you're here in the room, grab a copy. You can start scribbling down your answers on the train home or whatever journey you may have. There is no cost for being a founding signatory, so please do get involved. And again, if you're here, grab any one of the team and we'll be really happy to talk you through how to do that. The other thing that we want to make sure you know about is End Digital Poverty Day, which I referenced earlier on. And hopefully you will have been enjoying the subliminal messaging on the screen that this is something you need to get involved in. Again, this is about that awareness piece. It's about bringing people together. It's about creating place-based opportunities as well as digital opportunities to talk about digital poverty, hold workshops, really get that message out there. It is also a key fundraising day for the DPA. The inaugural End Digital Poverty Day was on the 12th of September last year. This year, of course, is going to be even bigger and even better, but we can only do that if everyone wants to get involved. We will be circulating information in due course about how to set up your own events, social media, collateral, all of that good stuff to make sure that you and your comms teams can be a part of that. And as part of this, of course, we also hold our End Digital Poverty Day gala reception each year, this being the second year. So if you fancy coming along this year, it was absolutely a fantastic day last year. It's going to be a Thursday night, the 12th of September. We're going to be at the Cartoon Museum in the West End of London. So why not? Why wouldn't you want to come along, see that? You'll catch the QR code going around where you can buy tickets. I'd also just like to point out, we can only do what we do, as I mentioned earlier, thanks to the support and indeed the funding that we receive from partners and individuals. So for one, I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who is involved in supporting us that way, including but not limited to some of our key industry forum members, so Virgin Media O2 Business, Currys, Central District Alliance, Meshi, and ICT Reverse. If you'd like to be part of this incredible network of businesses who are responding to this, please do get in touch with us. hello@digitalpovertyalliance.org, or you can contact me direct, elizabeth@digitalpovertyalliance.org. There's lots of ways to get involved, sponsoring events like this, being part of our specific missions, helping more children to get online, speak to any of the team, or join that industry forum. All that remains now is for me to thank everyone who came along today in person, thank everyone who's been joining us online. A huge thank you to the fantastic team who sit behind the Digital Poverty Alliance. We couldn't do this without all of us as a group pulling together to make events like this happen. Please do head downstairs. We've got a little networking reception. We've got drinks. Who doesn't want that? So if you're in the room, I'll see you downstairs, hopefully in a few minutes. And if you're online, thanks a lot for joining us. And we hope to see you at one of our future events soon. Thank you.